Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the human research vessel HSV Discovery, watching the stars through the main view screen. His ship had been exploring the Outer Rim territories for 3 months, mapping new systems and looking for signs of life. Today, that search had finally paid off. "Captain, we have movement on long-range sensors," said Lieutenant Amy Parker from her station. "Multiple ships approaching our position. They're big, sir. Really big." Jake walked over to Amy's console and looked at the readings. 7 massive ships were heading straight for them. Each one was twice the size of his research vessel. The design was unlike anything in human records. "First contact protocol," Jake ordered. "All hands to stations. Send a peaceful greeting on all frequencies." Chief Science Officer Lisa Rodriguez hurried to her post. She had trained for this moment her entire career. After years of searching, humanity was finally meeting another intelligent species. The alien ships moved with purpose. They formed a perfect line as they approached the Discovery. Their hulls were dark metal with strange markings that glowed blue. The largest ship moved to the front of the formation. "We're receiving a transmission," reported Communications Officer Dave Chen. "They're speaking English, sir. Somehow they already know our language." "Put it on speakers," Jake said. A deep voice filled the bridge. The words were clear but spoken with an odd accent. "Human vessel. This is Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire. You will prepare to receive our delegation immediately." Jake looked at Lisa. She nodded and activated the ship's translation protocols. Even though the aliens spoke English, they needed to record everything properly. "Commander Veltar, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel Discovery. We welcome peaceful contact with your people. Please give us time to prepare suitable meeting arrangements." There was a pause. Then harsh laughter came through the speakers. "Time? You want time? How very human. We will dock with your ship in 10 minutes. Be ready." The transmission ended. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Something about the alien commander's tone worried him. "Sir, their lead ship is moving toward our docking bay," Amy reported. "Should I raise shields?" "No," Jake said. "We came here for first contact. We'll do this right." 20 minutes later, Jake stood in the main conference room with his senior staff. Lisa had prepared translation equipment and recording devices. Dr. Robert King, the ship's doctor, waited nearby in case the aliens needed medical attention. The airlock hissed open. 3 figures walked through. They were tall, nearly 8 feet high, with gray skin and 4 arms. Their eyes were large and black. They wore dark uniforms with metal armor pieces. The one in front stepped forward. "I am Commander Veltar. These are War Leader Crixon and Strategic Analyst Morden." Jake stepped forward and extended his hand. "Captain Jake Morrison, welcome aboard the Discovery." Veltar looked at Jake's hand but did not take it. Instead, he walked around the table and sat down. The other 2 aliens remained standing. "We know about your species," Veltar said. "You call yourselves human. You come from a small blue world in a quiet part of the galaxy. You are very new to space travel." "That's correct," Lisa said. "We've been exploring space for about 200 years. We're excited to meet other intelligent life." Crixon made a sound that might have been laughter. "Excited?" "Yes. We heard you are an emotional species, very quick to feel things." Jake sat down across from Veltar. "We'd like to learn about your people." "The Zephyrian Empire, you said?" "We control 47 star systems," Morden said. "We have conquered 12 different species. Our empire grows stronger each year." "Conquered?" Lisa asked. "You mean you've made them part of your empire through war?" "Of course through war," Veltar said. "How else does one expand? You talk to them nicely and ask them to join." The 3 aliens looked at each other and laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Actually, yes," Jake said. "We believe in peaceful contact and slow integration. We think it's important to understand each other before making big decisions." The laughter stopped. Veltar stared at Jake with his large black eyes. "You want to understand first? How long does this take?" "Usually several years," Lisa explained. "We set up cultural exchange programs. We study each other's languages, customs, and needs. We make sure both sides benefit from contact. Years? Crixon said. You wait years before you act? We don't see it as waiting, Jake said. We see it as being careful. Big decisions affect many people. We want to make sure we do the right thing. Morden spoke quietly to the others in their own language. Then Veltar stood up. I understand now. You are afraid. We're not afraid, Lisa said. We're cautious. There's a difference. No difference, Veltar said. Fear makes you slow. Fear makes you weak. You are afraid to make quick decisions. You are afraid to take what you want. Jake felt his temper rise but kept his voice calm. We prefer to think before we act. We've learned that hasty decisions often cause problems later. Problems? Crixon laughed again. The only problem is being too slow. While you think and worry, others take what could be yours. Veltar walked toward the airlock. We came here to see if humans could be useful allies. Instead, we find a species that fears its own shadow. We're not afraid, Jake said, standing up. We're smart enough to be careful. Same thing, Morden said. In our language, we have a word for species like yours. It means those who cower, in delay. It fits you perfectly. The three aliens headed for the airlock. Veltar stopped and turned back. When we return to our empire, we will tell others about the humans. The strange, fearful humans who waste precious time with endless thinking. Commander, Lisa called out. Please reconsider. We have much we could teach each other. Teach? Veltar said. What could a species of cowards teach the Zephyrian Empire? How to be afraid? How to waste time? We already know how to win battles and claim territory. The aliens left without another word. Jake and his crew stood in silence as the Zephyrian ship undocked and rejoined its fleet. Well, Dave said finally. That could have gone better. Jake watched the alien ships disappear into hyperspace. Something told him this wouldn't be the last time humanity encountered the Zephyrian Empire. And next time the meeting might not be so peaceful. 6 months had passed since the Discovery's encounter with the Zephyrian Empire. Captain Jake Morrison had filed his report with Earth Command, but life in the Outer Rim had remained quiet. That changed when urgent messages started flooding in from across the galaxy. Admiral Zexara stood on the command deck of the Zephyrian dreadnought Conquest. She watched 3 massive fleets prepare for what her people called the Swift Conquest. Each fleet contained over 200 warships, ready to strike at 3 different star systems at once. All fleets report ready, War Commander Thekrin announced. The Centauri Federation has 40 ships to defend 3 worlds. The Vegan colonies have mining platforms but no military fleet. The Altarian Republic has advanced technology but only 20 combat vessels. Admiral Zexara smiled, showing sharp teeth. Perfect. 3 weak civilizations that spent too much time thinking and not enough time building proper defenses. Today, they learned the price of hesitation. In the Centauri system, the peaceful Federation had ruled for over 300 years. Their society focused on art, science, and trade. President Corlin sat in the Federation Council chambers when the alarms began screaming. Admiral, we have massive hyperspace signatures, Communications Officer Yelm reported. 70 ships just appeared at the edge of our system. They're heading straight for Centauri Prime. Admiral Jorik had served in the Federation Navy for 40 years. He had fought pirates and smugglers, but nothing like this. All available ships to defensive positions. Send out surrender terms on all frequencies. The Zephyrian response came quickly. Centauri Federation, you have 1 hour to surrender completely. Refuse, and we will destroy every ship and orbital station in your system. President Corlin stood before the emergency council session. We must consider our options carefully. Perhaps we can negotiate. There's no time, Admiral Jorik said through the communication link. They're already moving toward our worlds. But the Centauri way was discussion and debate. The council spent precious minutes arguing about surrender terms, while Zephyrian ships closed the distance to their planets. General Kulheim led the attack on the Vegan colonies simultaneously. The three mining worlds were rich in rare metals but had almost no defenses. The colonists were tough people who worked hard in dangerous conditions, but they were not soldiers. Colony Administrator Beth Sanders received the warning from long-range sensors. "How many ships?" she asked her aide. 57 warships, ma'am. Our security force has 12 patrol boats and some mining equipment." Beth looked out at the asteroid mining platforms where thousands of people worked. "Send evacuation orders to all platforms. Get people to the shelters." The Zephyrian ultimatum was the same: 1 hour to surrender or face destruction. Beth tried to contact the other colonies, but Zephyrian jamming blocked most communications. "We need more time to evacuate the outer platforms," Chief Engineer Ray Coleman said. "We don't have more time," Beth replied. "Send the surrender signal." The third target was the Altarian Republic. Unlike the other two civilizations, the Altarians had advanced technology. Their shields were strong and their weapons were precise, but they only had 20 ships to defend 5 worlds. Defense Minister Varkeen watched the Zephyrian fleet approach. 60 ships against his 20. The math was simple and brutal. "Our technology is better than theirs," Captain Telmore reported from the flagship. "Our shields can absorb more damage and our weapons are more accurate. But they have 3 times our numbers," Varkeen said. "Can we hold them?" "For a while, but not forever." The Altarians were logical people. They calculated odds and made decisions based on facts. The facts said they would lose this battle. All 3 attacks began at exactly the same time. The Zephyrian Empire had planned this carefully. While their targets debated and calculated, Zephyrian ships opened fire. The Centauri Federation's beautiful crystal cities burned under Zephyrian bombardment. Their 40 ships fought bravely but were quickly overwhelmed. President Corlin's final message was a plea for mercy for his people. The Vegan colonies surrendered without firing a shot. Beth Sanders hoped cooperation would save lives. The Zephyrians occupied the mining platforms and put the workers back to mining. But now the metals went to the Empire. The Altarian Republic fought the longest. Their advanced shields held for 3 hours. Captain Telmore's ships destroyed 12 Zephyrian vessels before being destroyed themselves. But numbers won in the end. Within 1 week, all 3 civilizations had fallen. The swift conquest was complete. Commander Veltar attended the victory celebration on the Imperial flagship. The same alien who had met with Captain Morrison now wore new medals on his uniform. 3 systems conquered in 7 days, Admiral Zexara announced to the gathered commanders. "This is how a real military force operates. Quick decisions, fast action, total victory." The crowd of Zephyrian officers cheered. Veltar raised his cup of victory wine. "While our enemies waste time thinking and debating, we act. While they fear making hard choices, we take what we want." War leader Crixon stepped forward. "The humans we met 6 months ago said they needed years to make decisions. Years. By that time we could conquer half the galaxy." More laughter filled the room. Strategic analyst Mordun activated a star map showing the new Zephyrian territories. "Our empire now controls 50 systems. The humans still sit in their small corner of space, probably still debating whether to expand their borders." "Let them debate," Veltar said. "While the cowardly humans hold endless meetings, we will show the galaxy what real strength looks like." The celebration continued through the night. Zephyrian commanders planned their next targets. The Empire's war machine was just getting started. On Earth, President Helen Carter sat in the White House Situation Room. Defense Secretary Ryan Murphy spread intelligence reports across the table. The news from the 3 conquered systems was grim. The Zephyrians hit all 3 targets at once, General Patricia Holmes explained. "Total victory in 1 week. Their military is more dangerous than we thought." Strategic advisor Kevin Wright studied the attack patterns. "They're efficient. No wasted motion, no hesitation. They know exactly what they want, and they take it." President Carter looked at the reports. Millions of people were now under Zephyrian rule. "What's our current defensive status?" "We're still building our deep space monitoring network," General Holmes said. "Admiral Blake estimates another 2 years before it's fully operational." 2 years? Defense Secretary Murphy shook his head. The Zephyrians conquered 3 civilizations in 1 week. President Carter stood up and walked to the window. Outside, people lived their normal lives unaware that the galaxy had become a much more dangerous place. "We stick to our plan," she said finally. "Keep building our defenses. Keep gathering intelligence. We do this right, even if it takes time." Kevin Wright gathered the reports. "The Zephyrians are calling us cowards throughout the galaxy. They're using us as an example of what happens when species are too afraid to act." "Let them talk, President," Carter said. "We'll see who's afraid when this is all over." Ambassador Claire Thompson stepped off the transport ship onto the trading station at Kepler 442. The massive space station served as a neutral meeting point for dozens of alien species. Her job was to make contact with as many governments as possible, but the recent Zephyrian conquests had made everyone nervous. The station's main corridor buzzed with activity. Alien traders from across the galaxy conducted business while keeping watchful eyes on the news feeds. Every screen showed the same story: the Zephyrian Empire's lightning-fast victories. Claire approached a group of Rigelian merchants. Their blue skin and tall frames made them easy to spot in the crowd. "Excuse me, I'm Ambassador Thompson from Earth. I'd like to discuss trade relations." The lead merchant, Keeper Zolan, looked at her with 3 large eyes. "Earth? You are the humans the Zephyrians laugh about? The ones too scared to fight?" "We prefer diplomatic solutions," Claire said calmly. "We believe peaceful cooperation benefits everyone." Zolan made a clicking sound with his mouth. "Peaceful cooperation? Tell that to the Centauri Federation. They preferred peace too. Now they mine crystals for Zephyrian warships." Claire had heard similar responses from 6 other species in the past week. Fear of the Zephyrians was spreading across the galaxy faster than their actual conquests. Back on Earth, Intelligence Director Nathan Brooks sat in his underground office reviewing reports from across human space. His network of monitoring stations had grown quietly over the past year. Most alien governments didn't even know the stations existed. "Sir, we have new data from the Vegan system," Agent Lucy Martinez reported. "The Zephyrians are forcing the miners to work 16-hour shifts. Production is up 40%, but worker deaths have increased." Nathan added the information to his growing file on Zephyrian occupation methods. "What about the Centauri worlds?" "Similar pattern," Lucy said. "They're stripping resources as fast as possible. No investment in infrastructure or long-term development." Dr. Amanda Foster walked into the briefing room carrying a thick folder. As head of the Xenobiology Institute, she had been studying Zephyrian society since first contact. Her colleague, Dr. Peter Lawson, followed close behind with his own research. "We've completed our analysis of Zephyrian expansion patterns," Dr. Foster announced. "The data is concerning." Nathan gestured to the chairs around the conference table. "Show me what you found." Dr. Lawson activated the wall display. A star map appeared, showing Zephyrian territory over the past 50 years. They've conquered 47 systems in 5 decades. That's almost 1 system per year. "Impressive," Nathan said. "No wonder other species fear them." "That's what we thought at first," Dr. Foster said. "But look at this." She pointed to specific areas on the map. 3 systems they conquered 20 years ago are no longer under firm control. 2 more are dealing with constant rebellions. The map zoomed in to show details of individual systems. Red markers indicated areas of unrest or uprising. They conquer fast, but they don't integrate well, Dr. Lawson explained. Their rapid expansion creates problems they don't have time to solve. Nathan studied the data. "Have they noticed this pattern?" "Apparently not," Dr. Foster said. "Their culture values quick victories over long-term stability. They see rebellions as temporary problems, to crush, not symptoms of deeper issues." Meanwhile, Admiral Susan Blake oversaw construction of humanity's deep space defense network from the command center on Luna Base. The project had been running for 3 years, but most of the work happened in secret. Engineer Corps Commander Tony Martinez reported to her office with the latest construction updates. "Phase 7 is complete, Admiral. We now have monitoring stations in 42 systems." "Excellent," Admiral Blake said. Any detection by alien forces? None reported, Tony said. The stations are designed to look like asteroid mining equipment. Most species ignore them completely. Admiral Blake pulled up a tactical display showing the locations of all monitoring stations. They formed a network stretching across human space and into neutral territory. Some stations were positioned dangerously close to Zephyrian borders. Have the Zephyrians tried to contact us again? She asked. Commander Veltar sent another message last week, Tony reported. He's demanding to know why we haven't joined their glorious expansion into the Arcturian systems. The Arcturian systems contained 5 worlds with rich agricultural resources. 3 different alien species had been negotiating mining and farming rights for over 2 years. The Zephyrians wanted humanity to help them simply take the systems, by force. And our response? Admiral Blake asked. Ambassador Thompson sent our standard reply. We're interested in peaceful trade negotiations that benefit all parties. Admiral Blake smiled. I bet that went over well. Dr. Rachel Green's team at the Galactic Studies Center had been working around the clock since the Swift conquest. Their job was to analyze galactic politics and predict future conflicts. The recent Zephyrian victories had changed everything. Ma'am, we've identified a critical flaw in Zephyrian strategy, Dr. Green's assistant, Mark Williams, announced during the morning briefing. Dr. Green looked up from her computer terminal. Show me. Mark activated the main display screen. They're expanding too fast to properly supply their occupied territories. Look at these shipping manifests we intercepted. The screen showed cargo ship routes throughout Zephyrian space. Lines indicated supply routes that were stretched beyond normal capacity. Their logistics network is operating at 95% capacity, Mark explained. Any disruption could cause serious problems. Dr. Green studied the data carefully. How long can they maintain this pace? Our model suggests they have maybe 2 years before the system starts breaking down, Mark said, unless they slow their expansion to consolidate existing territories. But their culture won't let them slow down, Dr. Green said. They see any pause as weakness. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to admiral, returned to Earth after 18 months of deep space patrol. His ship, the Discovery, had been modified with new sensor equipment and communication systems. He reported directly to President Carter in the White House. Defense Secretary Murphy and Strategic Advisor Wright attended the meeting. What did you observe out there, Admiral? President Carter asked. The Zephyrians are everywhere, Jake said. They're not just conquering systems. They're spreading propaganda about human cowardice to anyone who will listen. He activated his portable display unit. They use us as an example in their recruitment speeches. Look at the humans, they say. See what happens when species are too afraid to seize opportunities. Strategic Advisor Wright leaned forward. Are other species believing it? Some are, Jake admitted. Fear makes people accept simple explanations. The Zephyrians offer certainty in uncertain times. President Carter stood and walked to the window overlooking the White House lawn. Mr. Wright, what's the status of Operation Long Game? Wright consulted his tablet. All intelligence networks are operational. Dr. Foster's behavioral analysis is complete. Admiral Blake's defense grid will be ready in 6 months. And the resistance contacts? President Carter asked. Lieutenant Colonel Greg Adams has established communication with underground groups in 12 occupied systems, Wright reported. They're ready when we are. President Carter turned back to the room. The Zephyrians think we're afraid because we take time to plan. Let them think that. When the time comes, they'll learn the difference between fear and preparation. Admiral Morrison nodded. The crew is ready, Madam President. We've been watching and learning for almost 2 years now. Good, President Carter said. Because soon, all that watching and learning is going to pay off. Outside the White House, normal life continued. People went to work, children played in parks, and families gathered for dinner. They didn't know that their patient government had spent 2 years quietly preparing for the greatest challenge in human history. In distant star systems, Zephyrian commanders continued their rapid expansion, confident that their way was the only way. They had no idea that every move they made was being carefully observed and analyzed by the species they called cowards. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the greatest strength comes from knowing when to wait. Dr. Amanda Foster stared at the data on her screen. After 2 years of careful study, the pattern was finally clear. She called her colleague Dr. Peter Lawson into her office at the Xenobiology Institute. "Peter, look at this," she said, pointing to a complex chart showing Zephyrian supply routes. "I've been tracking their resource flow for 18 months. The numbers don't add up." Dr. Lawson pulled up a chair and studied the display. Red lines showed cargo ships moving between Zephyrian systems. Each line had numbers indicating fuel consumption, travel time, and cargo capacity. "Their newest conquests are requiring twice the resources they produce," Dr. Foster explained. "The Altarian Republic was advanced, but rebuilding their destroyed infrastructure is costing more than the system generates." "What about the Vegan colonies?" Dr. Lawson asked. "Those mining operations should be profitable." Dr. Foster switched to another chart. "They are profitable, but the Zephyrians are shipping all the profits to support their military expansion. The colonies themselves are getting nothing for maintenance or worker welfare." A red warning symbol appeared on several systems in the display. Dr. Lawson counted them quickly. 14 systems showing resource shortages? 16 as of yesterday, Dr. Foster said. "And it's getting worse. Every new conquest requires more ships, more soldiers, and more supplies. But they're not giving their occupied worlds time to recover and contribute properly." Colonel Ashley Rodriguez had spent 6 months infiltrating Zephyrian-occupied space. Her small team of intelligence operatives moved carefully between systems, gathering information that couldn't be obtained through remote monitoring. She crouched in the maintenance tunnels beneath the Centauri Prime government complex. Her contact, a former Federation official named Tarek, met her in the darkness. "The situation is worse than we thought," Tarek whispered. "The Zephyrians are demanding impossible production quotas. Our crystal mines are worked out, but they won't accept reduced output." Ashley recorded everything on her encrypted device. "What about the other worlds in your system?" "Same story everywhere," Tarek said. "They're strip mining everything without any thought for tomorrow. The environmental damage will take decades to repair." Ashley's communication device buzzed softly, a message from her team member in the Vegan system. She read it quickly and frowned. "What is it?" Tarek asked. "Worker uprising in the Vegan mines," Ashley said. "Third one this month. The Zephyrians are bringing in more security forces, but that means fewer ships available for their next conquest." Strategic Intelligence Officer Mike Johnson received Ashley's reports at his secure facility on Earth. His analysis team worked around the clock to process the information coming in from occupied Zephyrian territory. "Sir, we're seeing a pattern," analyst Sarah Kim reported. "Productivity in conquered systems drops after the first year of occupation." Mike looked at the data Sarah had compiled. "Show me the specifics." "The Centauri Federation's crystal production is down 30% from pre-war levels," Sarah explained. "The Altarian Republic's technology exports have stopped completely. Even the Vegan mining colonies are producing less than they did under independent rule." Mike studied the numbers carefully. "Are the Zephyrians aware of this decline?" "Apparently not," Sarah said. "Their reports to High Command only show total empire-wide production, which is still growing, because they keep conquering new systems. So they're hiding the problem from themselves," Mike said. "Interesting." Meanwhile, Commander Veltar stood before the Zephyrian High Command on their capital world. The massive council chamber was filled with the Empire's top military leaders. Supreme Admiral Kolthek presided over the meeting from his elevated platform. "Commander Veltar, explain why the humans continue to refuse our generous offer," the Supreme Admiral commanded. Veltar activated a holographic display showing the Arcturian systems. "The humans claim they need more time to study the situation. They want to conduct environmental surveys and cultural impact studies before any mining operations begin." Harsh laughter filled the chamber. War leader Krixan stood up from his seat. "Environmental surveys? Cultural impact studies? While they waste time with meaningless bureaucracy, the Arcturian resources sit unused. Perhaps we should simply take the systems ourselves," suggested General Mordun. We don't need human permission to claim what is rightfully ours. Supreme Admiral Koltek raised his hand for silence. The humans control key hyperspace routes to the Arcturian region. We need their cooperation for efficient supply lines. Then we force their cooperation, Crixon said. Their fleet is small. We could crush them in days. Veltar shifted uncomfortably. Something about the human behavior bothered him, but he couldn't identify what. Supreme Admiral, the humans seem different from our other conquered species. They don't act afraid exactly. They act like they're waiting for something. Waiting for what? Koltek asked. I don't know, sir, Veltar admitted. But they've been gathering information about us for 2 years. Their diplomatic missions ask very specific questions about our military structure and supply systems. General Morden dismissed the concern with a wave. Let them ask questions. What can they do with information? They have no fleet capable of challenging ours. Dr. Peter Lawson's predictive computer models had been running for 3 days straight. The quantum processors in the Galactic Studies Center worked through millions of possible scenarios based on current Zephyrian expansion patterns. Dr. Rachel Green watched the final calculations appear on the main display. The results were startling. Peter, are these numbers correct? She asked. Dr. Lawson checked his calculations one more time. The models are solid, Rachel. Based on current expansion rates and resource consumption, the Zephyrian Empire will face critical supply shortages within 8 months. 8 months? Dr. Green stared at the projection. That's much sooner than we estimated. The swift conquest accelerated everything, Dr. Lawson explained. Conquering 3 systems simultaneously stretched their logistics network beyond safe limits. They're operating on borrowed time. Admiral Susan Blake received the report in her command center on Luna Base. The implications were enormous. She immediately contacted President Carter through secure channels. Madam President, we need to implement Operation Long Game ahead of schedule, Admiral Blake said during the encrypted video call. Dr. Lawson's models show the Zephyrian Empire is approaching critical instability. President Carter looked tired. The stress of preparing for potential galactic war was wearing on everyone in the administration. How confident are we in these predictions? 97% accuracy based on observable data, Admiral Blake replied. Their expansion rate is unsustainable. Something has to give. Strategic Advisor Kevin Wright joined the conversation from his office in the Pentagon. Ma'am, Lieutenant Colonel Adams reports that resistance groups in occupied systems are ready to act. They're just waiting for our signal. President Carter made her decision. Admiral Blake, activate all monitoring stations. I want real-time intelligence on every Zephyrian fleet movement. Mr. Wright put our diplomatic corps on high alert. When this starts, it's going to happen fast. Communications specialist Dana Wells worked from a hidden facility in the Rocky Mountains. Her job was to maintain contact with resistance groups throughout Zephyrian space without being detected. The equipment around her represented the most advanced communication technology humanity had ever developed. Mountain base to Network 7, she spoke into her headset. Confirm status of all nodes. 12 different resistance groups responded from across the galaxy. Each group represented a different conquered species, but they all shared one thing: hatred for their Zephyrian occupiers. All nodes operational, reported the leader of the Centauri resistance. We're ready to move when you give the word. Dana logged the responses from each group. The network had taken 2 years to build, but it was finally complete. When the time came, coordinated uprisings would begin simultaneously across the entire Zephyrian Empire. She opened a secure channel to President Carter. Ma'am, the network is ready. All resistance groups report operational status. Understood, President Carter replied. Stand by for activation order. In the depths of space, Zephyrian cargo ships struggled to maintain supply lines that stretched across 50 star systems. Ship captains pushed their vessels beyond safe limits to meet impossible delivery schedules. Maintenance was deferred, crews worked double shifts, and cargo holds were packed beyond capacity. Captain Thurrock commanded a supply convoy heading for the Altarian system. His ships carried food, medical supplies, and replacement parts for the occupation forces. The journey should have taken 5 days, but High Command demanded delivery in 3. "Captain, Engine 3 is showing stress fractures," his chief engineer reported. "We need to reduce speed or risk catastrophic failure." Captain Thurrock looked at his orders one more time. Delay was not acceptable. "Maintain current speed. We'll make repairs after delivery." Similar conversations were happening on hundreds of ships throughout Zephyrian space. The Empire's rapid expansion had created a logistics nightmare that its leaders were determined to ignore. On Earth, President Carter stood in the Situation Room surrounded by her top advisors. The moment they had been preparing for was finally approaching. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, "the Zephyrians are about to learn that the crisis began on a Tuesday morning in the vegan mining colonies. Workers who had endured 2 years of brutal 16-hour shifts finally reached their breaking point. When Zephyrian overseers demanded even higher production quotas, the miners threw down their tools and walked out. Colony Administrator Beth Sanders, who had been secretly working with the Human Resistance Network, watched from her office as thousands of workers gathered in the main plaza. The Zephyrian garrison commander, Major Kelvor, ordered his troops to force the workers back to the mines. "Negative," Beth said over the communication system. "These people have rights." Major Kelvor's face appeared on her screen, his 4 arms gesturing angrily. "These people are property of the Zephyrian Empire. They will work, or they will be punished." "Then, you'll have to go through me first," Beth said, and cut the communication. At exactly the same moment, similar uprisings began in 14 other systems. The coordination was perfect. Resistance groups that had been planning quietly for 2 years struck simultaneously across the Zephyrian Empire. On Centauri Prime, former Federation Admiral Jorik led a coordinated attack on the Zephyrian Command Center. His people had been building weapons in secret, using their knowledge of crystal technology to create powerful energy rifles. In the Altarian system, Captain Telmore's son organized strikes that shut down the technology manufacturing plants. Without Altarian computer systems, Zephyrian ships couldn't maintain their navigation networks. Communication specialist Dana Wells monitored the uprisings from her facility in the Rocky Mountains. Her screens showed status reports from resistance groups across the galaxy. "All networks operational," she reported to President Carter. 16 systems reporting successful initial operations. President Carter stood in the White House Situation Room with her senior staff. Admiral Susan Blake appeared on the main screen from Luna Base. "Ma'am, Zephyrian fleet movements confirm Dr. Lawson's predictions," Admiral Blake reported. "They're pulling ships from their expansion fleets to deal with the uprisings." "How many ships?" Defense Secretary Ryan Murphy asked. 40% of their mobile forces," Admiral Blake said. "Their supply lines are collapsing under the strain." Strategic Advisor Kevin Wright pulled up intelligence reports on his tablet. Lieutenant Colonel Adams reports that Zephyrian cargo ships are breaking down throughout their territory. They've been pushing their logistics network beyond safe limits for months. Supreme Admiral Kolthek stood in the Zephyrian High Command chamber, but this time the mood was very different. Urgent messages flooded in from across the Empire. His commanders looked worried instead of confident. "Sir, we have uprisings in 16 systems," War Leader Crixon reported. "Local garrisons are requesting immediate reinforcement." "Send the Yar, 3rd and 7th fleets," Kolthek ordered. "Sir, those fleets are already committed to suppressing rebellions in the outer territories," General Morden said. "We don't have enough ships to cover all the crisis points." Commander Veltar studied the tactical display showing the Empire's current military deployment. Red warning symbols marked trouble spots throughout Zephyrian space. "Supreme Admiral, something is wrong here," Veltar said. "These uprisings are too coordinated. Someone is organizing them." "The humans," Kolthek said suddenly. "This has to be their doing." "Impossible," Crixon replied. "The humans are cowards. They don't have the courage for military action." Veltar shook his head. "We were wrong about them. This isn't cowardice. This is strategy." On the edge of Zephyrian space, Admiral Jake Morrison commanded a fleet of 30 human ships. They had been waiting in the shadows, watching and preparing. When the uprisings began, they moved into position. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian flagship," Communications Officer Dave Chen reported. "Put it through," Jake said. Commander Veltar's face appeared on the screen. He looked desperate and angry. "Admiral Morrison, we demand an explanation. Your species is behind these attacks," Jake smiled calmly. "Commander, we warned you 2 years ago that we prefer to understand situations before we act." "You said you were afraid," Veltar said. "You said you needed time to think." "We did need time," Jake replied. "Time to study your empire. Time to understand your weaknesses. Time to build relationships with the people you conquered." Dr. Amanda Foster appeared on a secondary screen, broadcasting from Earth. "Commander Veltar, your rapid expansion strategy has a fatal flaw. You conquer too fast to properly integrate new territories." Commander Veltar stared at the human scientist. "What are you talking about?" "Your empire is built on speed, not stability," Dr. Foster explained. "You never give conquered populations time to become loyal citizens. Instead, you create enemies who wait for the right moment to rebel." Dr. Peter Lawson joined the broadcast. "Our computer models predicted this collapse 18 months ago. Your logistics network couldn't sustain unlimited expansion." "You've been watching us," Veltar said, understanding finally dawning in his eyes. "For 2 years," Admiral Morrison confirmed. "Every fleet movement, every supply route, every weakness in your system. We learned patience from our own history, Commander. Sometimes the best strategy is to wait for your enemy to defeat themselves." Captain Jenny Walsh commanded the human diplomatic vessel Harmony. She had spent 2 years visiting every alien species in the galaxy, building relationships while the Zephyrians focused on conquest. "Admiral Morrison, I have representatives from 47 different species requesting meetings," she reported, over the communication channel. "They want to discuss mutual defense agreements." 47 species, Veltar said, his voice barely a whisper. "While you were conquering 12 species, we were making friends with 47, Captain Walsh explained. "We offered them something you never could, time to make their own decisions about cooperation." The Zephyrian Empire continued to collapse over the following weeks. Their military was stretched too thin to handle simultaneous uprisings. Their supply ships broke down from overuse. Their conquered populations refused to work. But the final blow came from an unexpected source. The Zephyrian military itself began to question their leaders' decisions. Junior officers who had watched their empire overextend itself started asking difficult questions. Captain Thurrock, the supply ship commander who had been pushing his vessels beyond safe limits, finally refused a direct order. "Sir, my ships are falling apart. My crews are exhausted. We can't maintain these impossible schedules anymore." Similar rebellion spread through the Zephyrian Navy. Practical officers who understood logistics better than their superiors began to ignore orders that would destroy their ships and crews. 3 months after the uprisings began, Commander Veltar found himself in the same conference room where he had first met Captain Morrison. But this time, the Zephyrian was asking for help. "We underestimated your species," Veltar admitted. "We thought patience was weakness." Admiral Morrison sat across from him with Dr. Foster and Ambassador Claire Thompson. "Patience isn't weakness, Commander. It's wisdom. We learned from our own history that sustainable growth requires time and careful planning." "Your empire expanded too fast," Dr. Foster added. "You conquered territories without building the relationships needed to maintain them." Ambassador Thompson leaned forward. "We're willing to help you rebuild, but it has to be done properly. This time, no more rapid conquests, no more forced integration." Veltar looked at the humans with new respect. "What do you want in return?" "Time," Admiral Morrison said. "Time for your conquered peoples to decide their own futures. Time for proper diplomatic relationships to develop. Time to build something that will last." "You're offering us the very thing we mocked you for," Veltar said. "Yes," Admiral Morrison replied. "We're offering you the chance to learn what we learned, that some victories can only be achieved by those wise enough to wait for the right moment." The Zephyrian Empire reformed itself over the following years. Instead of rapid expansion, they focused on rebuilding relationships with their former territories. Many systems chose to remain allied with the reformed Zephyrians, but now as partners instead of conquered subjects. The galaxy learned a valuable lesson about the difference between speed and wisdom. The humans, once mocked as cowards, became respected as peacekeepers and mediators. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at a peaceful star system where former enemies now worked together. Ambassador Thompson had successfully negotiated a trade agreement that benefited everyone involved. "Admiral, we're receiving a message from the Arcturian systems," Communications Officer Chen reported. "They're requesting human mediation for their resource development project." Morrison smiled. "Tell them we'll need some time to study the situation properly." "Time," Chen said with a grin. "Our greatest weapon." "No," Morrison corrected. "Our greatest wisdom." The galaxy had finally learned that humanity's greatest strength was never their technology or their military might. It was their understanding that true victory requires patience, wisdom, and the courage to wait for the right moment to act. In the end, the aliens who had mocked humanity's fear discovered that what they had mistaken for cowardice was actually the greatest courage of all. The courage to do things right even when